The story you're about to hear isn't just another tale of wealth and class. It's a reminder that sometimes the people society looks down on are the very ones God uses to perform miracles. Imagine this. A maid insulted daily, treated like dirt by the very people she served, and yet, through patience, humility, and love, she became the reason their lame daughter took her first steps. But before we get to that shocking twist, let's start at the beginning. By the way, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. On this channel, we tell real, powerful stories of the underdog, those overlooked, underestimated, and mistreated who rise to reveal their worth. You don't want to miss the next one. Her name was Naomi Cole, a young black woman in her late 20s with short natural curls tucked neatly under her maid's cap. She wore a crisp black uniform with a white apron, her posture straight, her face composed, even when her heart was heavy. Naomi had taken a job with the Harringtons, one of the wealthiest families in the city. Their mansion was a monument to luxury, gleaming marble floors, grand staircases lined with velvet, chandeliers that lit the halls like golden suns. But inside that mansion, kindness was in short supply. From the very beginning, Victoria Harrington, the matriarch, made it clear Naomi was unwelcome. A woman in her early 50s with a blonde bob and a floor-length emerald gown that shimmered like money itself, Victoria sneered as she looked Naomi up and down. "This is the maid the agency sent us?" she scoffed, folding her arms. "Honestly, couldn't they have found someone with a bit more polish?" Naomi lowered her eyes. "Good evening, ma'am. I'll do my best." Her husband, Edward Harrington, wasn't any softer. A tall, barrel-chested man with slicked-back gray hair and a tailored navy suit, he muttered under his breath, "We pay too much for help that looks like this." Naomi didn't respond. Words were wasted on people who had already judged her. She had learned to let her actions speak. Day after day she worked tirelessly, scrubbing, dusting, polishing until her hands ached. She carried trays of food with grace, even as Edward barked at her for being too slow, or Victoria rolled her eyes whenever she entered a room. But there was one person in the Harrington household who did not look at Naomi with contempt. Her name was Isabella Harrington, their only daughter. She was 20 years old, beautiful, but bound to a wheelchair since childhood. A condition had stolen her ability to walk, leaving her sheltered from the world, pitied but never truly understood. Isabella's parents loved her in their way, but they treated her as fragile, like porcelain locked in a glass case. What they didn't see was how deeply lonely she was. Naomi saw it. Whenever she brought Isabella tea or helped her into bed, Naomi lingered a little longer, speaking softly. And Isabella responded. "Thank you, Naomi," she'd whisper, her voice carrying relief, as though she finally had someone who saw her as more than just her condition. It was in those quiet moments that something rare bloomed between them. Trust. Victoria noticed the laughter that sometimes floated from Isabella's room and snapped, "Naomi, you are not here to be her friend. You are here to work. Do your job and keep your distance." Edward added with a dismissive grunt, "Don't fill her head with nonsense. She has enough struggles as it is." Naomi bowed her head and obeyed outwardly. But inwardly she knew something they did not. Because Naomi carried a secret. A gift. A knowledge so quiet, so hidden, that even she wondered if it could be real. And soon, very soon, that gift would shake the Harringtons' world to its core. The night was coming when the maid they despised would become the reason their daughter stood on her own 2 feet. The Harringtons' world is about to be thrown into a storm no amount of money can calm, and the answer will lie in the very maid they had rejected. The Harrington mansion glittered on the outside, but inside, shadows stretched long across its polished floors. Naomi kept her head down, but her ears were sharp. She heard every whisper, every cutting remark Victoria muttered under her breath. "She's getting too comfortable," Victoria told Edward one evening as they sipped wine in the drawing room. "I don't want that maid spending so much time with Isabella. She'll fill her with silly ideas." Edward nodded, swirling the wine in his glass. "You're right. Isabella's condition is permanent. No point in encouraging false hope. Let the doctors handle it. If it could have been fixed, it would have been fixed years ago." Naomi, who was polishing the silver tray just a few steps away, kept her expression neutral. But her chest burned. These were not just employers, they were people who had all the resources in the world, yet not the vision to see beyond what doctors had declared impossible. Isabella was not a fragile doll. Naomi had seen the strength in her arms, the restless energy in her eyes whenever she looked at the garden beyond the glass windows. She wanted more than pity. She wanted life. And Naomi, despite being only a maid in their eyes, was determined to give her that. Naomi's grandmother had been a healer in her small village before Naomi ever set foot in the city. Long before luxury mansions and gleaming chandeliers, Naomi had watched her grandmother place her hands on the sick and whisper prayers that seemed to reach heaven itself. Some called it faith. Some called it stubborn belief. Others called it foolishness. But Naomi knew what she had seen. She had seen fevers break, wounds heal faster than anyone thought possible, and legs once stiff begin to move again. Her grandmother's words echoed in her heart every day. "Child, the world will tell you what cannot be done. But God decides what's possible." Naomi had carried that faith with her into the Harrington household. It was not something she broadcast. People like Victoria and Edward would laugh her out of the room if she even dared to mention it. But when she looked at Isabella, she saw more than a girl in a wheelchair. She saw a young woman trapped by the disbelief of others. And Naomi decided quietly in her heart, she would not let disbelief win. One quiet afternoon, while the Harringtons were out hosting a charity gala, Naomi wheeled Isabella into the garden. The air was crisp, the flowers in full bloom. Isabella tilted her face toward the sun and smiled. "It feels so different out here," Isabella said softly. "Inside I feel like I'm always on display. Like I'm part of the furniture." Naomi crouched beside her. "You're not furniture, Isabella. You're a young woman with so much inside of you waiting to come out." Isabella sighed. "Everyone tells me to accept things as they are. That this chair is my life. But sometimes when I dream I see myself running." She paused, her voice trembling. "Do you think it's wrong to hope for something impossible?" Naomi's eyes filled with quiet fire. "Impossible? No, child. It's only impossible until it isn't." That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. Naomi's words replayed in her mind. For the first time in years, she dared to whisper to herself, "What if?" But Naomi knew hope was a dangerous thing in a household like the Harringtons. And soon, it would not just be Isabella's hope at risk, it would be Naomi's livelihood. The next morning, Victoria stormed into Isabella's room unannounced. Naomi had just helped her into a light summer dress and was brushing her hair. "What is this?" Victoria snapped. "Naomi, you are not her companion. You are the help. Your job is to clean, to serve, not to sit here playing nursemaid." Naomi bowed her head. "Yes, ma'am." But Isabella, usually timid before her mother, surprised them both. "Mother, Naomi isn't just the help. She understands me in ways no one else does." Victoria froze, her eyes narrowing. "Understand you? Don't be ridiculous. She's filling your head with ideas, isn't she?" Edward, who had followed behind, chimed in coldly. "Naomi, remember your place. If you're caught encouraging our daughter to chase fantasies, you'll be out the door before the day ends." Naomi's lips pressed tightly together. She said nothing. But inside, her resolve hardened. They could despise her. They could threaten her. But she would not let Isabella live chained by their lack of faith. That evening, after the Harringtons retired, Isabella whispered to Naomi, Do you really think it's possible? That one day I could walk." Naomi took a deep breath. She placed a hand gently on Isabella's trembling fingers. "Not by my strength," Naomi whispered, "but by faith, by persistence, by refusing to give up. If you'll trust me, we can try." Isabella's eyes widened. Fear and hope warred within her. But then, slowly she nodded. "I'll try." And with that nod, the seed was planted. The Harringtons would soon find out that the maid they despised was about to attempt something their millions couldn't buy, something their arrogance couldn't imagine. But Naomi also knew, if they ever discovered what she was doing, they wouldn't just fire her. They would destroy her. Still, she chose the risk. Because sometimes, risking everything for someone else's freedom is the only way to truly live. Naomi and Isabella are about to embark on secret sessions that could change everything. But if Victoria and Edward find out, Naomi's life will unravel in ways she never imagined. The mansion slept, but Naomi was wide awake. Her heart pounded as she pushed Isabella's wheelchair slowly down the hallway, careful not to let the wheels squeak against the polished marble floors. Every shadow seemed alive, every creak in the wooden panels sounded like thunder in her ears. "Are you sure about this?" Isabella whispered, her voice trembling. Naomi crouched low, her eyes filled with steady resolve. "If you want to walk again, Isabella, it will not happen in the comfort of silence. It will take courage. We'll take risk. Do you trust me?" Isabella swallowed hard, then nodded. "Yes, I trust you." Naomi led her into the quiet of the small library. It was the one room Victoria and Edward never entered at night. Books towered on each side, the smell of old leather filling the air. Here they would begin. Naomi gently helped Isabella from the wheelchair to a sturdy chair. Isabella's legs trembled as though rebelling against the weight they had long forgotten. Her breath came short, fear flashing across her face. "Steady now," Naomi whispered. "We're not trying to leap, just to stand." With Naomi bracing her arms, Isabella gripped the edge of the chair and slowly pressed her feet into the carpet. For a moment she lifted herself, knees wobbling, her body shaking violently. She gasped and collapsed back into the chair. "It hurts," Isabella whimpered. "Maybe they're right, maybe this is impossible." Naomi knelt in front of her, her eyes fierce and unyielding. "Listen to me, Isabella. Your legs remember. Your body remembers. The world may have told you no, but God says, try again. Do not let fear write your story." Tears welled in Isabella's eyes. Slowly she nodded. "Okay, one more time." Night after night, Naomi and Isabella returned to the library. They worked in silence, always listening for footsteps in the hallway. Each attempt pushed Isabella further. First standing, then balancing, then a trembling half-step. The pain was real. The fear was louder. But Naomi's voice, steady, unshakable, always cut through. "Don't stop now. You're stronger than you know." One morning at breakfast, Victoria noticed something. "Isabella," she said sharply, her diamond earrings catching the light, "why are you sitting straighter these days? Did someone adjust your chair?" Isabella froze. Her fork clattered against the plate. I don't know, Mother. Maybe it's the new cushion." Victoria's eyes narrowed. She glanced toward Naomi, who stood quietly at the corner of the room. For a fleeting second, suspicion flickered across her face. Later that day, Edward confronted Naomi. "You've been spending too much time with Isabella. Remember your position. If I find out you've been filling her head with nonsense," his voice trailed into a cold warning, "you won't just lose your job. You'll be blacklisted from every household in this city." Naomi bowed her head respectfully, but her heart whispered, "Let them threaten. I will not stop." 2 weeks later, under the glow of the library lamp, Isabella gripped Naomi's arms tighter than ever. Her legs quivered as she pressed down on the carpet. This time she didn't fall back. This time she stood. A cry burst from her lips, half fear, half exhilaration, as she held herself upright for the first time in years. Naomi's eyes glistened with tears. Yes, Isabella, you're standing." I can feel it," Isabella gasped, breathless. "I'm standing." Naomi held her steady, her own heart soaring. This is just the beginning. But even as triumph surged through them, footsteps suddenly echoed in the hall. Heavy, deliberate. Naomi froze. The doorknob turned. The library door creaked open. And there, standing in the doorway, was Victoria, her eyes wide, her face pale with shock. Victoria has just caught Naomi helping Isabella walk. Will she expose her and destroy everything, or will the truth force the Harringtons to confront what they never believed possible? Victoria froze in the library doorway, her diamond-studded hand clutching the knob as though it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes darted from Naomi to Isabella, standing, trembling, but undeniably standing on her own 2 feet. For a moment, time seemed to stop. What is this?" Victoria's voice quivered with disbelief. Isabella gasped, wobbling, and instinctively Naomi caught her. But Naomi did not cower. She turned, standing tall, her eyes meeting Victoria's with a quiet fire. "Mrs. Harrington," Naomi said softly, "your daughter can walk again. She just needed someone to believe in her." Victoria's lips parted, but no words came. Her perfect composure cracked, and for the first time she looked human. Moments later, Edward stormed into the library, his silk robe flapping behind him. "What is going on here?" His booming voice shook the shelves. Naomi stepped forward before Isabella could falter. "Sir, Isabella is stronger than you've allowed yourself to believe." She stood. "With work, with persistence, she will walk again." Edward's face turned crimson. He slammed his fist against the table. "How dare you meddle with matters you do not understand? You're a servant, nothing more. Do you think because you've read a few books, you know better than the finest doctors in this country?" Naomi's voice did not waver. "No, sir. I don't claim to know better. But I know what faith, patience, and determination can do. I've seen it in her eyes every night." Edward turned to Victoria. "Fire her. Right now. Before she fills Isabella's head with more dangerous lies." Victoria opened her mouth to speak, but Isabella's trembling voice cut through the tension. "No." The room fell silent. Edward blinked. "What did you just say?" "No," Isabella said louder this time. With shaky hands she pushed against Naomi's support. Her legs quivered, her body threatened to collapse, but with sheer will she took a step, then another. The sound of her bare feet against the carpet echoed like thunder. Victoria's hand flew to her mouth. Edward's face drained of color. "Mother. Father?" Isabella's voice shook with tears. "Naomi believed in me when no one else would. I can walk. I can really walk. And it's because of her." Victoria stumbled back, her chest heaving. For years she had despised Naomi, treating her as less than human. And yet here she was, watching the very maid she scorned give her daughter back, the one thing doctors had declared impossible. Edward, however, could not let go so easily. His pride was a fortress built on wealth and arrogance. "This is a trick," he muttered, his voice hollow. "A cruel performance. She'll collapse any second." But Isabella didn't collapse. She took another step, then another, her tears mixing with laughter. Naomi stood by her side, not holding her, but walking with her. And in that moment, Edward Harrington, the man who owned half the city, looked utterly powerless. Days later, word spread quietly among the mansion staff. The Harringtons, once cold and unyielding, had changed. Victoria, still proud, softened whenever she looked at Naomi. She no longer barked orders. Instead, she asked questions. She even said, "Thank you," a word Naomi had never once heard cross her lips. Edward resisted the longest, but even he could not deny the truth. When he saw Isabella walk across the garden on her own, her laughter ringing out like bells, something inside him broke. He turned to Naomi, his eyes heavy with the weight of humility. "I was wrong," he admitted, the words scraping his throat. "You've given us a miracle. And for that, we owe you more than we can ever repay." Naomi bowed her head gently, but her words cut deeper than any lecture. "All I ever wanted was for Isabella to know she was capable of more than she believed. Sometimes, the people who have the least are the ones willing to give the most." Isabella went on to recover fully, her steps growing stronger each day. She no longer looked at Naomi as a maid but as family. Together they walked through gardens, down hallways, into a life filled with possibility. Victoria and Edward learned something they had long forgotten. Money could buy doctors, comfort, and luxury, but it could not buy faith, perseverance, or love. And it had taken the woman they despised the most to remind them. This story isn't just about Naomi or Isabella, it's about what happens when faith collides with prejudice. Sometimes the people society looks down on are the very ones carrying the miracle we desperately need. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated, only to rise above expectations and prove everyone wrong? If this story moved you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe to our channel, because here we bring you powerful true-to-life stories of strength, faith, and justice. More stories that the world needs to hear. Subscribe now and let's keep exposing the truth together.